Hello all. Okay, so this is the second installment of our Giphy API tutorial. One thing I want to highlight before we jump in and kind of finish this back up is so maybe something that wasn't totally clear before is the fact that if you want to do multiple images, you also have to have multiple image functions, okay? So pretty much for each input and button, right? For each like set of inputs, buttons, and images, you should have a set of variables, right? So the input, the button, and the image for that set, all right? Then what we do is we update the variables, right? So we update our input, we update the button, and then we make the button into a mouse press. The mouse press adds the function down here, which is the API function, right? So this sort of combines our API stuff and then also gets the input value from that input. And then it also is going to be calling the getData function, which is down here, which is the function that calls our image, right? So in this getData function, I have a bunch of them, right? I'm going to be passing the actual image creation, to the noun canvas, okay? And so if you want to be styling your images separately, what you'll do is you will pass your canvas, so up here, you're going to pass your canvas to like a highest level canvas, right? And then inside of that canvas, you're going to put a bunch of other divs, right? So in this instance, I have a noun canvas, adjective canvas, verb canvas, all these different canvases, all right? And so these then you can style with CSS and you can give all the different images different treatments. So just to reiterate, let me make sure I'm on the right one here. All right, just to reiterate, here is, so this is the example that I originally sent y'all. Here's all your different canvases, okay? So here's all the different canvases. This is what I'm sorry, all the different pieces of HTML that you're going to be passing your images to, and this is what you're passing that main canvas to. So just to show you, this is how this example is getting these different positions because each of these has a different div to control it with. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's implement that on ours. So let me just get set up here. Okay, so here's where we left off. Okay, and then let me just make sure I have the correct HTML. I'm sorry, JS. So I'm looking multi-input. One sec. Sorry, y'all. Great. And I want final web app. Perfect. Okay, so let's just run this page again, make sure we're good to go. Okay, so we have hello, it's going to print out, and then I don't think we implemented anything on this secondary one just yet. Yeah, okay, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to implement this secondary one. But the first thing that we'll do is let's go ahead and let's deal with the image here that we print out based on the user input. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just figure out where I'm passing that image. So in this getData, I'm passing it to input one canvas. All right. So here's the GIF canvas. Again, I'm passing my create canvas into this piece of HTML, and then I'm passing the actual images into the children of that canvas. Okay. And so in my CSS, I'm going to style input one canvas. Let me grab that CSS. Okay, cool, I already have this open. my bad. All right, so I'm going to style this input 1 canvas, which I have here. And what I can do is if I want to mess with that image individually, I can do this, img, and then give that a height, or let's just give it a width because that'll just size it proportionately. Let's say like 10 VW. Right, and then let's just do like 5 VW and then maybe like left. So this will position the whole thing, right? And then this will directly impact the image itself. So if you want the image to change size, you'll have to be really specific about it. So the piece of HTML that you're passing it to, and then space image. That's what will change the size of the image. All right, there we go. Cool. And then let's maybe just get rid of this box shadow for now, just so we don't have that. We can resolve that later. If you really want a box shadow on it, we could resolve it later. Okay, so now what we're going to work on is we're going to work on this secondary input. So I'm going to head on over to the JS. Okay, and I'm going to put this variable image with this. Okay, so this is going to be like the whole set of input, button, and image for that whole process. And then I'm also going to just leave myself some little comments here. Okay, so these are going to be my variable updates here. And then this here, this is where I'm going to define my my API functions. And then this are going to be my image function, okay? So for instance, if you have, and then obviously my variables. Variable declarations. Okay, so let's get rid of this for 1 second. And let's just take a look at all of this. So obviously we need a canvas. You're only going to have one canvas, but you're going to have multiple images which you pass into the canvas, which is equivalent to this ID, and then you're going to be passing the multiple image functions into these pieces here individually, all right? So for each like set of inputs and buttons, all right, you're going to have variables, you're going to have an update, variable updates, you're going to have the API function, and then also the image function. All right, so I'm just going to put that in some comments up here. Each set gets vars, var updates, API functions, and then image function. Okay, so let's implement that for my secondary input. So my secondary input is called input2. That's the like broad class that it's in. We want to do the ID of the actual input here. Okay, this I'm going to just use to style and like maybe move it around. This is what's actually creating that input in the HTML page. All right, so first thing. So I'm going to do my variable declarations. Whoops, I'm going to grab all of these. And let's just do some comments. Input set 1. And then this can be input set 2. All right, and I'm going to change this to 2 button 2 screen 1 and then image 2. Okay, so and that's giving me a auto pop-up, so I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to do Command F and just make sure I'm not using that anywhere else. Oops, IMG2. My goodness. Yeah, okay, so I don't know why that, maybe I defined it earlier or something. I just want to make sure I wasn't using that twice. All right. And then, oops, if you're like me, you like a little more of a visual cue here for what's happening. All right. Okay, and then we'll head down here. Grab these friends, just make it a little cuter, easy to look at. All right, and then I'll do my var updates set1. Make that into some comments. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did for this set with this set here, all right? And I'm just going to copy and paste this and then change it. So instead of input 1, I'm going to be working with the input 2 variable, and then I need to select it with the piece of HTML that I want to work with, which is input 2 as well. And just to reiterate, these are different things, but because we're defining them in different files, they can have the same name. This is a JavaScript variable. This is HTML. Select is how we say, like, okay, y'all are connected. So when I call input 2, it is carrying around this piece of HTML with it. Okay, so then button 2 S1, which is my button 2 on screen 1. Right, and then select, I'm going to say button 2 S2. Maybe that doesn't make total sense the way that I named it, but we're just going to keep going here, okay? So button 2, we'll just change it to S1, just to be, because in case you want to have a set of buttons on your second page. Because I have this screen 2 button here, okay? So button 2 S1 is going to be down here. Button 2 S1. Okay, and then I'm going to update this variable again, and I'm going to make it into a mouse press function, and I'm going to add a secondary function here. Okay, so I want to keep this closing bracket because this is going to close out the setup function, and all this good stuff needs to be in setup. All right, so maybe let's leave ourselves some comments. Just so we don't accidentally delete that. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this function, and I'm going to name it gif add 2. Okay, so in the mouse press for my button, my second button for this set here, I'm going to trigger this gif add 2 function instead of the gif add 1 function. Okay, and then actually let's just take a little break and let's just give ourselves some nice comments. So satisfying. Okay, and then let's do function set1. We'll call it API. API on funtimes set1. API funtimes set2. Okay, and then, all right, so for this function, we don't want to add got data again because the got data itself is going to be using the original image variable, right? The image variable for this set. And it's going to be printing it into input canvas 1. So we want to make 2 changes to this function. Okay, so we have our image functions here. And then we'll do function set1. And then we'll do an image function set2. All right, and we don't even have our draw in here yet because we're not doing any updates yet, but we'll add that in just a little later. So you'll have a draw function here at some point. But we don't need to worry about that just yet. Whoops, forgot the param. Let's just make that right. Okay, so we'll just leave this here for now. We're going to add that later. Okay, so image function set2. Okay, so for this one, we want to change the name. So we want to change the name, and then we also want to change the return function to reflect the name. And then what we want to do is instead of updating the image variable, we want to update the image variable that we're going to use for this set2. So we've defined it as image2. Okay, so we'll do image2. Okay, create image, got data, all that good stuff. And then again, we'll say image2 with all of this stuff in there. We're going to give it a parent, and the parent of it is going to be my input2 canvas, like so. So input2 canvas, and again, the parent works with an ID. That's why we don't have any punctuation here. Okay, so let's run this. And let's test it out. Sorry, it's my dog. Okay, cool. So let's see what's not validating here. Okay, we have one error. Uncut in promise cannot read property images of undefined at 80. Okay, so one thing that I overlooked here, okay, so in your API functions, right? So again, just remember, everything needs a set, okay? So you need variables, variable updates, API functions, image functions, okay? So our variables are good for each, and then our updates are good for each, okay? I'm adding gif add 1, gif add 2 on the second one, okay? So for this one, I overlooked something, all right? So for the function gif add 1, which I'm putting up here, right? I'm getting the input value from the variable 1. So for my secondary function, I want to get the input value from my variable 2 right here. Okay, so that's what I missed. I'm going to change that. Okay, and then also, let's take a look at what we have down here. All right, so I would suggest maybe just leaving this return value at just got data, because this is just the value that you're passing from this function, but we actually declare the function by its function name. Okay, so for instance, up here where it says the load JSON file, which is your JavaScript data file, right? The URL from here, and then the actual image creation script from here, okay? And then we're parsing it up here. We also need to change this. So for the first one, we're gonna add the image function for set1, and then for the secondary one, we're going to add the image function for set2. Don't worry about changing this because you want to pass this back into the function. You do, however, want to change this JSON call because, again, this is what's going to load the data. It's going to load the URL and then the ability to go into that URL and get an image. So we have to update this as well, okay? So for gif add 2, the JSON file needs to be the image creation function down here, okay? So if we save and rerun, there we go. And then we should get an individual image as well. Cool. Okay, so this one has specific positioning, so we can go back into our CSS so we can give this one some specific positioning as well. So I will just grab this image2 canvas here, head back to my CSS. All right, I'm first gonna just style the input2 canvas. Oh my goodness, Frank. All right, and I will give it some position. So we'll just grab some of this same stuff here. Okay. Maybe we'll rotate it -45 degrees, and let's give it an opacity of 0.5. Okay. And then let's also say we want it to be like 10 from the top, 10 from the left, and then we will say the image size, right? So the image size here, let's give it a width of 20. Okay, So now when I refresh, cool. So I should have, yeah, help monkey. Cute.